Okay, it's day 2 and I wanted to do a little follow-up to the introduction, a little bit more about the theory of what we're doing. It was kind of rushed yesterday and I'll probably put these 2 videos together. Maybe look at a few more of the specifics of the changes we're going to have to make. So the challenge, of course, is to put tracks on this truck, this SUV. And well, it's obviously not going to be easy, but when I was a kid, my dad had a Nodwell, and we rebuilt it, and we used it to go fishing up in Fort McMurray to places where nobody else could go. And so I always had this dream of doing the same thing, but something smaller, something that was much more easier to use. So what we ended up doing, I had this idea, and that's where this came from. So one of the things that's been key to this picking of this vehicle is rear disc brakes, because drum brakes, when they get dirty, they don't work. So what we need to do is we're going to take these disc brakes, might replace the rotors with a slotted rotor, but basically these brakes are key to making this whole vehicle work. So what we got to do is we need to basically remove the shocks, remove the springs, we can remove any accessories, and we're going to relocate this back here. And once we do that, we have to extend the drive shaft, but there's nothing in the way except the spare tire, which of course, once we've got tracks, we won't need a tire anymore. And we'll lose the stabilizing bar as well. Then, on the front end, since we've got the tire off, we don't need any of this anymore. We're going to sell some of this for parts or whatever, but we're going to take off the rotors, we're going to take off the control arms, we'll take off the stabilizers, take out the suspension. This has got a torsion bar suspension, and take out the front axle and plug the front transaxle or the transfer case. Then when we build the track, we've got these wheels right here. They're a really small wheel, so we're going to need lots of them. Right now I'm calculating we're going to need 8 of these wheels. So you can imagine that wheel's going to sit something like that. Whoops. That wheel's going to sit something like that. You can see the lighting, I'm getting shadows. So the wheel sits like that, and it'll have a track on the top and bottom. Of course, the wheel is actually going to sit out here, about there. We want the tracks to be 12 inches, and they're going to go inside just underneath here, and then over top 4 inches, and then 4 inches out. So this vehicle is about 5'4" in the total width. So when we're done, the total width should be just over 6 feet. So meaning that it'll still go in the down most trails that side-by-sides will go down, which is key to a vehicle of the right size. So the way you attach a track is we've got to have a cogwheel to drive this. And what I happened to find was a hydraulic or an air cylinder from piston. I actually don't know where this came from. A guy at the metal store just said, "Hey, you're looking for a piece of 8-inch pipe? I got something that'll work." And what we're going to do is weld on here. We're going to cut a strip 4 inches wide, and we're going to weld cogs. So you're going to have these cogs, 6 of them, around here, and then this is the belting for the track. And if we pretend that this is a cog, or one of the belts, one of the stabilizer bars or the grip bars, once it's welded in place, or bolted in place, you're going to have a piece of metal, rubber on both sides, and then on the underside, the piece that goes in is a bar to bolt to on the opposite side, and it'll have a protective guard here to keep the wheel in the middle at all times. So the gap between the bars that go all the way across is where the cog will sit that's going to drive the vehicle. So you can imagine we're going to take this and I'm going to weld 4 inches to this rim, and then we'll just use the plasma arc. It'll get welded in here, and then we'll use the plasma arc to just trim out the rest of the rim that I don't need. I've got to get another one of those steel rims yet for this truck. So now, if you can imagine, that rim is bolted on with that piece of 4-inch wide of the 8-inch pipe with cogs on it. So the center of the track is right here, it sticks out 4 inches, and the track's going to go in 4 inches. So it might overlap with these rotors, and if that's the case, we have to extend it out a little bit further. I don't have the ability to make these smaller or to shrink the axle. Shortening the axle would cost a lot of money, and I don't plan on spending that much money. The most I'm going to end up spending on is basically we have to get the drive shaft extended. So that's the basics of the assembly of the track. At the front, we're going to have an idler wheel. So it'll be another 8-inch wheel or 6-inch wheel, and it'll get mounted right here, and then the first of those smaller wheels will go down here. So you can imagine the belt goes down like this, the track wraps around, and the top of the track will be somewhere around here is what we want. Further videos I'll go through the theory of that, and I'll especially once we fabricate a few of the bars, we'll do some samples up, and the belting, I'll take a few, just a little scrap end or those sample pieces, and I'll just bolt together a couple pieces to make a little test section of track, maybe 2 feet long or 3 feet long, just to see how it fits and make sure we have the parts built correctly, and then we'll build jigs for all of the pieces so that we can make them exactly the same every time. And let's see, what else do we have to do? That'll be the big one. Of course, the key piece to this is getting those brakes to work independently. So the plan for that one is we're going to take and use the existing brakes. So this is the ABS module. So we're going to remove the ABS, and the current brake cylinder here is functional. We're going to leave it, but we're going to make it so that there's only one output from it, and we're going to just plumb one output direct over to the other, to say the left side. Now with the removal of this front wheel, this is all open space. There'll be track here and there'll be open space right here. So what we're going to do is mount another brake cylinder, master cylinder, and booster right here, along with the reservoir and everything. We're going to go to the scrapyard to get. Once we put that in right here, we're going to plumb it up, both of those brakes, up to a set of steering arms. So basically, if you Google up a Nodwell and how it works, it's got 2 pull levers, which would sit in the middle. We're going to have to remove the steering wheel and probably cut off as much as we can of the steering column. But we want to leave things like the windshield wiper controls in place, and we need the drive shaft, the shifter as well, and the key switch. So thinking we can take the airbag off, the steering wheel off, and then just chop saw it right here, and then we can install the controls to run the steering right here. And then of course, you know, a person sits here and you pull both of them to steer left and right. Of course, the one of them will be connected to the existing brake system, will be required in order to shift it. So you'll have to pull the brakes to shift from park to reverse to neutral. And by using the existing transmission, we're getting the drive shaft output is all just maintained. We don't have to worry about it. And by using an 8-inch drive cog on the back, we're getting a 3-to-1 speed ratio. So what previously it would spin at, say, max of 120 kilometers an hour, it'll now have a top speed of 40. And that's plenty for what this machine, this is not to be jumped and to be, you know, abused that way. It's more for tooling around, going slow. And of course it's our first test of building this, so we'll see how it goes. You know, eventually, who knows where this plan could end up being. It could be a custom body with, if you can imagine, a sealed-in tunnel, so that it's like a Nodwell and it could float then. But for now, you know, we're just trying to take, as cheap as possible, take existing components and use them. This rear drive shaft, this rear axle doesn't have, this differential is doesn't have locking. So both tires can spin completely independently, which is key for making this work as well, because once we apply a brake to one side, not the other side has to spin while this one's braking to make the vehicle turn. So that's the majority of the project. I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm liking the height. We've only raised it up about 5 inches to get the wheels right off the ground. The wheels, these miniature wheels, you can call them bogies. We're going to use a walking beam to mount them. So every 2 of these wheels will have a beam and be pivoting. So these will be going up and down. So if we give it 6 inches of travel here, it'll go 6 inches up on one side and 6 inches down on the other. So should be enough travel. So it might have to go up a little further. It's only about 5 inches right now. And that much travel. The only thing was we're going to be 8 of these tires. So, you know, when you go on slopes or when you go through curvature areas, like going through a valley or through a dip, the front 2 wheels and the rear 2 wheels will be taking all the weight, and the middle 2 might not have any weight. But the tires themselves and the hubs are rated for 1,000 or 600 pounds each. So if they're 2 on a walking beam, that's 1,200 pound rating. So 2,400 for each side, 2,400 for the back. So that's 4,800 pounds, and that is, right now this vehicle is going to weigh out at around probably 33,000 pounds. So once we're loaded up and we've got the track built and a few extra things put on, it might weigh up near 4,000 with gear. So I think we're going to be fine, hopefully. Anyways, we're going to do a lot of testing at the beginning. Since I live on an acreage, we're going to go out there and beat it up and see what bends and breaks, and hopefully we can fix and improve, modify. Anyways, that's the basics theory of what we're going to do with this vehicle, and I hope you guys enjoy watching us playing with this. I'll just try to keep the rest of the videos more of putting pieces together and testing them, and so you can see the major highlights of what we're building.